the audience.
They will be in chat, but Türker will read them. So, guys, hello. We have the next panel online. Very cool guests are here with the discussion on how to make a hit game in new realities, insights, and recommendations. So, please, Türker, welcome your guests.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Hello, everyone. We have a great session here with great partners helping to me here. There are huge publishers that I'll be chatting with about the near future of the hyper-casual and also current state of the hyper-casual too. So first thing is first, I am Türker, CEO of the Udo Games. We are a 9 years of company in Turkey, one of the oldest mobile game studios, and there are great panelists here. So who want to start to first introduce to himself and what is the role in the studio and what do you do in general? Who want to start?
Hi guys, very nice to meet you. Such a rock star team here. It's a real pleasure to be here. Hope we will teach someone how to make hit or at least commercial launch game. My name is Sergey. I'm publishing lead at AzurGames as well as head of AzurGames Belarus studio, and will not take a lot of time. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Hope it will be very cool.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Go ahead, Nir.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Jean-Baptiste, but JB might be here. I'm very, very glad to be here with you all. I agree with Sergey. What a rock star team indeed. I'm a senior publishing manager at TapNation and very much interested in every insight that we'll be able to give, and I'll be able to receive also from you guys as well. And looking forward to it.
Amazing. Hey, everyone. My name is Nir. Pleasure to be here. I'm director of publishing in Supersonic as part of Iron Source, of course. It looks like an amazing panel and excited to be here.
Hey, guys, I'm Surojit. I represent CrazyLabs. Recently the co-founder of Firesco, which was acquired by CrazyLabs, and now I represent CrazyLabs as a whole, currently working mostly on our Crazy Hubs Accelerator initiative.
That's great. So all of us has different focuses on the market. I mean, we have really great partners like only focused on hyper casual, but also we have contributors that has both casual and hyper casual departments, and even we have partners like AzurGames that has mid-core games, hardcore games, even as far as I know, Sergey. So my first question is a little bit general, but I really want to discuss about it. So I've been thinking like the border between casual and hyper casual is getting thinner every day. So it feels like the hyper casual users are getting used to being a real gamer every day. And what do you think about this topic, Sergey? How do you think and how do you approach as a publisher to this topic? Like, do you consider it as hyper casual is still totally different genres, or do you consider like it is getting merged nowadays?
Actually, it is a problem of definition, not more, because we see evolution of the genre, of the market, of the players. But basically, if you speak about all these things like hyper casual moves to casual and stuff like that, no, it is still hyper casual, but the market grows. It is becoming more mature. I mean, players, because the market is not publishers and developers, it is players. And we speak about hyper casual. It is low entry threshold. It is about not gaming persons, just mobile persons, our audience. But what I see, the growth of mobile users means our audience in hyper casual, I think not grows so fast as new products, I mean hyper casual, come into the market. And if you speak about casual games, this entry threshold is a little bit higher. And it is like a pie where winner takes everything. So if you want to go to casual or to midcore or to any other genre, you should be ready to compete, because once again, this market of casual users has real numbers. And if you want to make, for example, match 3 game, you have to make it better than, for example, all the match 3 games right now on the market to take their audience. And so if you succeed, and if you make something with lower CPI, with higher LTV, it means that you will probably take someone's audience, because audience, it is something that exists, and it is becoming a little bit higher and higher, but still it is a problem of definition. I like the way hyper casual moves. I like it is becoming more and more complicated, more polished, but it is also about the growth of technology. 3 years ago, no one could make such shaders like we see right now. Now it is enough to have just visual programming and some add-ons at Unity, which will help you to make a really good stuff. And so I think that it's a problem of definition of the genre and of product side. So, but I don't see it is somehow combined. Yeah, it is evolution of the genre. Every genre evolutioning, so it's not such a big issue.
Great. I see you there. So there's still a problem that nobody still could find a great way to explain what is hyper casual and what is the limits of this genre. So I see you there. It's actually more about the explanation of hyper casual. But I want to follow with Nir. So as Supersonic, you have a game like Bridge Race that is, I think it's more like a casual game that I'm pretty sure it has great in-game metrics, and it has metrics like a casual game. So what is this Supersonic's idea here, and what do you approach in the near future to this topic?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic and a great question. First of all, I totally agree with Sergey. I think that the definition is basically, the question is if the game is ad-based monetization or IAP-based monetization. So I think this is the biggest question. Of course, everyone wants to have stronger in-games and lower CPIs, etc. And I think that what's defined if it's a casual or hyper-casual game, it's not necessarily the art level or how polished the game is, but the monetization strategy and of course the scale, the UA strategy about Bridge Race. So I think it's not a casual game. It's a very strong hyper casual game. It's mainly aid based, and yeah, the in-game metrics are amazing. And I think that if we look at every mega hyper casual hit, probably we'll find an amazing combination between amazing marketability and very, very strong in-game, which converts into strong LTV. I don't think that I don't see the hyper casual market evolve into casual market. I do think that the games and the products will become more polished, and the products will become much more deeper and better as technology is improving, and as there is the competition is rising on the market. And obviously, to have a hit game, you have to be better than everyone. So naturally, we'll see better games. But in general, as long as we're basing the monetization on ads, I think the games will keep basically the same strategies and templates, basically.
That's great. Thank you also for reminding me that also some people explains hyper casual like it's only a monetization model. Like when you are making a casual game, you have to include in-app purchases, and you have to have a good revenue share from the in-app purchase side. And from the hyper casual perspective, it's really low on share, so it can be explained like this too. So going with the CrazyLabs side. So CrazyLabs is like one of the best explanations of the hyper casual, I think. So most of your games are feeling like so simple and feeling like when I want to see a hyper casual game, I can always explain or give an example from one of the CrazyLabs games. So what do you think about it? And also I wonder, is there any casual like games on CrazyLabs upcoming games or any game I missed in the near past?
So we have a whole casual wing. In fact, CrazyLabs is a very old company that was called Taptail before, which was mostly doing casual games. And it wasn't until I think Run Sausage Run when we really, and Amaze, where we really began, our foray into hyper casual, and became to be known as CrazyLabs as well. But before I go into answering your question, I wanted, since everyone's jumping in on the first question about casual and hyper casual, and I agree with Sergey and Nir what they said. I want to add my own 2 bits here, which is that I feel, on to some degree, as both genres evolve and as both genres kind of learn from each other, rather than becoming more similar to each other, I think in some ways they're becoming more and more extreme. I think hyper casual in some ways is going more extremely hyper casual, and this segment of the market that is, you could say, not evolving towards the casual side of things, and that's what we're seeing today. And some of our recent releases in the past few months kind of demonstrate that. And coming back to what you were saying about the simplicity in our games, yeah, we have been known to do very simple games. I think everyone kind of loves the idea, the definition of hyper casual being that anyone from the age of 7 years old to 70 years old should be able to play these games. And a lot of our games tend to be simulations, although now we're starting to get into different genres. But yeah, that's kind of what we love to do, what we love to build, the audience we like to cater towards, and you see that come out in our games.
Thanks for your answer. So lastly, JB, from the TapNation side, so what is your approach, and how do you think, as a new person actually here, how do you think is the new upcoming games should convert into, like, we are saying that the games are getting much more better in the quality or much more better in the polish side. So how is your approach in this here?
Yeah, so as well, I'd like to just bounce back also on the previous question. I agree completely with what I've heard here, but also as Sergey was talking about the pie analogy for the audience, I do completely believe that as well, in some way, casual is in a competition with hyper casual. We've been noticing in creatives that casual and midcore have been kind of inspiring themselves from the hyper casual acquisition model of making simple gameplay ads, straightforward, very juicy, very seductive. And I feel like the hyper casual market is also inspiring themselves from the crazy in-game metrics and LTV that you're able to reach in casual. So indeed, it's to me, the hyper casual is not becoming casual. It's 2 very different markets. But however, of course, you always take strengths where you notice them, and both markets have been doing it for quite a bit and will continue doing it. On my side, I do feel like hyper casual has a double-edged future, in which indeed we notice some part of it where we're gaining a lot of depth into games. Technology, as it's been mentioned, also allows for new ways of gaining depth into games, and for sure this is one of the main assets for developers and publishers alike. And yeah, in my opinion, and how we see it here at TapNation, it's all about finding the right way to appeal in a new way to the end user, and using these technologies to either go full ultra casual or get closer to casual in the spirit of having games with a lot more depth.
That's great. So I want to follow up with you again, JB. So as one of the oldest hyper casual contributors here as a developer, and also from the last days as a publisher too, so we experienced lots of stages in the market. Like, the market is changing dramatically in shorter times, like in 3 months, in 6 months, you see significant changes on the market. Like, and also one of the changing stuff is always the expectations of the publishers as key metrics, as benchmarks expected from the games, also as genres or as subgenres. I mean, like runner, puzzle, idle arcade, anything you can add here. So one of the most changing stuff was, I feel like, the CPI side. So a year ago from now on, we were always talking about finding a good CPI is the first thing. So it was like, first find the CPI, then increase the in-game KPIs, and you will go on a hit path. So I feel like it's changing a lot nowadays. So it's turning ahead, like find the in-game metrics first, and you will find the CPI later on. I feel like it. So what do you think about it, and how do you approach to your studios about this stuff?
Well, first of all, yes, indeed, there's been kind of a shift in these KPIs, in the mindset at least, and how we've been looking at them. But this does not mean that it isn't still relevant, because of course this is a more traditional way of looking at your game performance and how to know what's the next step to work on. So for sure, it is still relevant. What the shift I've been noticing in the market is that we've been noticing more relevant ways of looking at your game's content and analyzing it. And I do believe that before there was kind of, an aspect where you looked at CPI and it was an independent metric you were looking at as a criteria. It's like, is the CPI good enough, regardless of what I'm seeing into in-game metrics? Nowadays, this is not true at all. CPI to me, in terms of objective, in terms of KPI, is a metric that is hugely dependent on other metrics I'm observing, of course. And this translates to me a focus that is not only on metrics, but on overall monetization that we're seeing. The more publishers, the more developers gain experience in the field, in the market, the more they can see the relationship between the metrics and not just the metrics themselves. And these relationships, with the rise of the IPM, for instance, these relationships are what defines a game's potential. And now it's all about making your game a whole, a coherent whole, where you're able to monetize successfully, regardless of exact KPIs.
Great. So following up with Surojit here, I want to add a question here too from the same topic, but I want to add some new question. So do you think like finding a low CPI, I mean a good CPI from today's benchmarks, is one of the must stuff to find a scalable game or find a high scalable game from CrazyLabs side? And I'm pretty sure you are still finding good CPIs from new games. Everyone is here finding good KPIs not still, but is this changed a little bit as a benchmark? And also, what is your approach here?
Absolutely. I think we've all witnessed the change in the general CPI numbers over the past couple of years. Even more than that, you could say, ever since hyper casual was around, the CPIs have been evolving. To give you a more like relatable number, maybe something that would test at 20 cents, a year or two ago, will probably now test at 50, 60 cents. Does that mean the game is dead? Probably not. Find a way to make it work. As Jean-Baptiste was saying, the retention is now in play, and there's other ways to kind of look at how you would take a game to scale. But yes, it's become harder. It is more competitive, and I think overall what that's really telling us is that users want something different. It's not the same old stuff that we've been giving them. They want something new. The market is in a different stage, and we need to address it as such. And of course, that's something that all of us publishers are kind of looking at and figuring out what to do and what suits us best and what works best for each of us. But yeah, definitely things have changed, and things are getting even more interesting. If you look at it in a positive light.
Thanks a lot, man. So when we are talking about CPI, actually from the UA side, the user acquisition side, we even have to talk about the privacy side too. But I won't open up the privacy side. Don't worry about it. It's a new, totally different session. So Nir, from following with you. So as I said before, I believe that you have games like that has great in-game metrics. Is it a huge gap for you to find a good CPI? I mean, if you have a really great in-game KPI game, you feel like you don't have to find a great CPI, or can you still do a great scalable and profitable operation in there?
Yeah. So in general, I think that the market has changed, and we need and we have to look differently on the benchmarks. I think that if we looked at 1 year ago or 2 years ago, the CPIs we've been looking for was 15 cent, 20 cent, 25 cent, and crazy in-game metrics. I think that today we understand that both the benchmarks are changing, and we have a wider range of good marketability, because in the end of the day, the scale is obviously it's a nice thing, but it's not our goal. Our goal is to have profitable games. If you take, for example, either arcade games, which has much weaker marketability but much higher LTV, probably you can see a game on top 150 on the top charts, but still making a lot of money. On the other hand, you can see games on the top 10 and makes the same amount of money with higher amount of installs. So in general, I think those two things is very important to follow. I think we understand that there is a wider range of good marketability, and what we need to do is consider both sides. If we have stronger in-game metrics, probably we can move forward and have a profitable potential game with higher than the average marketability. Same for the other side. Sometimes if we have very marketable concepts and very low CPIs, we can be profitable even with lower in-game metrics, which we didn't expect to see it, but we do see it for many games. So I think to be efficient and to take more games into the profitable phases, I think it's very hard to predict from the initial testing and say this one going to be a mega hit because of that. I think in the end of the day, we need a good balance from the marketability and the profitability valuation on the prototyping phase. And actually, yeah, I think that still we need to follow the marketability first, because this is something that is very hard to change, the marketability of your concept. I think that if you have medium marketability, this is something that you will need to check. If you're able to increase the in-game metrics and the LTV potential significantly, this is something you should definitely consider to keep doing. But also on that side, as I said, in the end of the day, we have to look at the marketability, and we have a limit because we are monetizing hyper-casual games with ads, and in the end of the day, it's limited. It's not like an IAP games. You can have LTV of hundreds of dollars, or you can spend, you can buy users with very high CPIs, but it's not the case on most hyper-casual games. So yeah, this is my point of view.
Thanks, man. So Sergey, following with you. So as I said, as you have lots of different departments like mid-core games and casual games, so hyper-casual is a totally different approach to the benchmarks and also to the genre. So what is the general approach of Azur in this side?
Actually, nothing new for us here. That's how we have been working for 3 years, with the only one important metrics as retention day one. And it helped us to grow a lot. For example, 3 years ago, we were top 15 publishers for downloads, but last year we were top 3 publishers due to downloads. And actually, about 80% of all our hyper-casual games published, I believe, have CPI around $1. Or even more, because it is about analytics, it is about the approach you used to work. You know, I mean, even 2 years ago, we were publishing games with ROAS 180, you know, like in mid-core, even hyper-casual, we still catch these users, and we take into consideration when planning our user acquisition strategy. So for us, actually, it depends. Yeah, basically it depends on proportion LTV CPI. Nothing new here, but we were always thinking about day one retention, engagement, and we have team of crazy producers who really like deep gameplay, re-gameplayable. You know, when you have a core loop with good progression, which can be scaled well and which is played well. So we do care about day 14 even for hyper-casual, because for hyper-casual even day 14 works really well. This difference in CPI, even 20 or 30 cents, can be easily, fixed if you have day 14 higher than normally, at least 4% more, you know. And that's what I'm talking about when I told you that the genre is becoming more mature. It will never become like casual or something like that, because anyway, market needs low entry threshold games. you can call it hyper casual, like kind of monetization and only, but still never forget about product side of the issue. People need these simple games with low threshold, with quick sessions, and yeah, becoming more and more games with longer sessions, but still, yeah, CPI becoming higher because the competition grows, because as JB told us that, yeah, some mid-core publishers as well as we use approaches in our marketing taken from hyper casual. It seems weird, but it works, yeah. And so CPI becoming higher, but no need to afraid this issue. It is about growing the market. That's it.
Thanks, man. So returning to you, JB. So I have to ask those general question because it's more about the topic of this session. So what is the 3 tips that you are giving the studios you are working with that you have to do this to find the hit in the fastest way? And also, what is the 3 things that you feel like you are telling your studios that you have to avoid these 3 stuff?
Yeah, so I say the main tip, which should be to me something very evident, but is not at all always the case, is to be systematically always playing the new, not even top, but I'd say even top 200 to top 100 new releases, trending games. Because as the market is ever changing, if you base your development skills and your ideation of already outdated subjects, you will always be losing on the marketability side. And in my opinion, this is really something that I've been seeing lacking in many studios, to be really understanding and checking how the market evolves, because it's an ecosystem that is ever changing, and people often come up to me with ideas or even fully developed games that are based of mechanics, of juiciness, of satisfaction that doesn't work that well anymore. And I feel also that a big tip that I would give is to always add things into the product that serve the gameplay. People tend to want to contextualize a lot when they first enter the hyper casual market, and that is something that is more of an of a trap, of an obstacle, than something that serves the game. You'd rather implement things that only will improve the consequence of your action, literal movement, gameplay, core loop of the game as well, and not always try to render things logical, contextualize them. People seem to be putting very heavy also environments sometimes, where we see as publishers that, for instance, for runners, a more generic environment works best. In terms of marketing and also in terms of in-game metrics, because everything is to guide the eye towards the center of interest, which is what you're doing in the game. So this is something that I guess is quite different than to other casual publisher developers, or to people who are used to more maybe complete games. But in hyper casual, it's all about adding only elements that will improve the game feel. And so if you want to improve on your game metrics, it's not about adding parallel things. It's to add things that intersect with your gameplay. So this is the second main tip I would say, which is more than a tip to me, requirement. And as a third tip, I would give really the fact that on trend related subjects, to try and go in as fast as possible. We're seeing very fast trends that die out even faster than they appear almost. And the first entry on that trend is the one that's going to win. I'm going to take back the pie analogy from Sergey because I love it. I mean, the freshest slice is always the first slice. So if you see a trend popping up, like for instance, with all those horror games, like all the puppy playtimes, we've recently had the puppy playtime chapter 2. We've been seeing these in games coming up. And if you're the first to get and reach the audience that was hooked on that subject, I'd say that only in that scenario, speed to me is more important than quality. So trend-related speed and overall, if you're not talking about really short trends, quality is for me important. So this is the third tip I'd give.
Thanks, man. So following with Surojit, so as CrazyLabs, do you have a guidebook like to the new studios that started working with you, like do these 3 tips and avoid these 3 stuff, and what is your warnings and tips here?
Well, I mean, I could give you the generic hyper casual tips that everyone always gives, like be prepared for failure, learn as much from the trends, etc., etc. But I think maybe one thing that I've noticed recently, 1 or 2 cases, which I think is important to point out, is that the market changes quickly, and a lot of times I've seen studios go into long production cycles, say 3 months of iterating on a build, and then by the time they come out, the market's in a whole different phase, and they've kind of lost touch, and it takes another month to kind of get to grips with what's going on. So a specific piece of advice that I think I could give would be to, even if you are going into a cycle of production that's going to go on for months, keep an eye on what's going on in the market, so that when you're out of that cycle, whether you've launched a game or not, you're ready for whatever comes next. So yeah, I think I would suggest heavily recommend doing that, and yeah, avoid the complacency of just working on that one build. Just keep an eye on the market as well. You never know what next idea could strike you.
Great. So as my second question, do you really have a guidebook, like a stuff that you give to newcomers that please read this first and after that start working with us? Is there any guidebook or is there any instructions?
We have something better, actually. We have the Crazy Hubs Accelerator program, which is our accelerator that runs around the world. It's a 4-month long boot camp where we bring studios in and we train them on hyper casual. These are usually studios who are new to hyper casual, who want to get in, who've probably been in casual. And rather than a guidebook, we have a series of sessions and workshops that bring them up to speed. And because they're in a physical space, we work together to try and get out good CPI tests over a 4-month period, and then hopefully convert them into professional studios beyond that.
Okay. You're talking about Crazy Hubs, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Thanks, man. So coming from Nir, so what is your approach here actually? So that I ask a few questions so you can answer all of them. Your tips, your warnings, and also is there any guidebook that you follow, you support to the studios?
Yeah, definitely. So I want to point out 2 tips that I think might be general, but always true, and in my eyes are the most important ones. So I think that the first thing is don't shoot in the dark. When you're doing the ideation process together with your team as a hyper casual developer, I think that only looking at the top chart games or very successful games that have been published in the recent days, I think it's not enough. I think it's very, very important to understand why each and every one of those games was successful, and what are the strengths of the games that we can take and implement in new ideas, in more innovative ways that users haven't been seen yet. So we see a lot of developers and a lot of studios that making amazing prototypes, which looks great, but eventually has failed, mainly because very high CPIs. But I think that in that term, it's very, very important to have a specific ideation methodology and understand how to combine the right elements in the right gameplay with the right team, etc. Because this is, in the end of the day, the right and basically the right path to increase the chances to find a good hyper casual game. Obviously, none of us know to look at a video before we tested it and say for sure it's going to be 20 cents or $1. Sometimes, obviously, we're surprising from the results, but there is a way to be consistent and to find and to increase the chances to find a good concepts. So this would be the first one. And the second, I think it's combination between efficiency and knowing your benchmarks. So I think that as we discussed before on the previous question, I think the benchmarks are changing. I'm not sure like we will always know the exact numbers that we should look for, but we do know the range. We do know because and this is basically the best probably one of the best things that the publisher should explain and guide his developers is what he should aim for, what benchmarks. Because if we look at the CPI on Facebook 1 year ago, 20 cents represent probably a very good and marketable concept. These days, 40 cents, 50 cents can also be very, very successful games. And I think that developers and publishers that want follow and analyze the changes in the benchmarks might miss a very good and profitable concept. And in terms of efficiency, so as always, it's very, very important not getting too much in love with your games and with your prototypes. If it's not working, if the combination, if it's the marketability, if it's the in-game is not working on the hyper-casual market, it's better to move on and find the next concept. Otherwise, we might miss a lot of precious time and resources.
Thanks, man. So, Sergey, same here. Tips, warnings.
Yeah, sure. Fully agree with Nir. What about the first advice? What about second advice? I would say it's a tricky moment because if you really love the game and at the same time you really understand something in game design and you have good product expertise from your publisher, sometimes it can be really fruitful. For example, we had several games with CPI around $2, like ChainCube. We were iterating them for half of the year, just because we believed our partners, they believed in their games. We were iterating, and finally we found how to launch the games. And for example, Cube Games, ChainCube game, it is a game with $2 CPI or even more at its networks. It is still hyper casual, and it has about 20 million downloads, but about profit, it is around several $1 million of profit. You know, the price for that, half year of your life to iterate the product. It's a tricky moment. You never know, as Nir told, how it will turn out. You know, so it should be in complex. You know, you should understand your power, the power of your publisher, and everything should be very transparent. You should understand why you spend this time. You can't spend this time on iterating, but you should understand why. But what about the tip? It will be only one, because all the guys shared great tips. As for me, what I always tell studios, try to decompose successful games. I mean, not top chart games, but at least if you see that game has more than 30 or 20 million downloads, it means that something good in this game. Try to decompose, because, you know, technology grew, art stylization grew, but game design not. You know, decompose every level from the perspective of level design, from the perspective of progression. Progression, it is the pain for me always. I always tell at every panel, at every conference, that progression, it is not longer levels and not harder levels. Progression, it is your basic core loop and adding new sub-mechanics, new obstacles, giving new content. Don't be greedy in that issue. I usually see very strong studios who provide only very good core loop, really juicy, great one, but it is only core loop without any progression for 20 levels or 30 levels. They told me, Sergey, we have good progression, we have 30 levels, we have a lot of content. No, guys, you don't have a lot of content. You have very good core loop and 30 levels of this core loop. So try to decompose. What I do, level 1, and you just write everything about your experience. If you can decompose like professional, just express your feelings about how you play. Level 1, I start playing, I move finger like that, I see such kind of obstacles, interactions with these obstacles, enemies and stuff like that. Level 2, what new kind of obstacles I see, what new sub-mechanics I see, and stuff like that. It is tough job, yeah, but it is the only way to do really good games, competitive games, if you speak about hyper casual nowadays, from what I see. So yeah, it's going to be one advice. and fully agree with guys with their advices as well. Yeah. Your microphone is muted. Please unmute your microphone.
Thanks, man. Sorry. It was a long but great answer. Thanks for the great detailed info. So actually, I want to follow up with you again, Sergey. So I mean, there are lots of ways to find good ideas. Like, I mean, you can find ideas from PC games, console games. You can find ideas from social platforms or other games in the market too. But one of the most popular ones were social games last year, actually, I think. I don't see too many games this year that got ideas from social trends and social media. So, as AzurGames, are there so many games that you inspired from social trends and social platforms? And also, how much do you invest on these social trends as ideation, of course?
What about ideation perspective? I would recommend this year, try your best with all the most craziest ideas. 2 years ago, I would say never look at Steam, at indie games, never look at any socials, never look at crazy ideas. Everything is well known. Just try to rethink something. Right now, I see, because of high competition, really strong ideas, but it should be, of course, it should be with good gameplay potential. Not just I saw a TikTok video with a lot of million views, but it has no gameplay potential. Every idea should have gameplay potential, should have mechanics. One bright case, recent case, it was with Squid Game. We made the game Cookie Carver with a partner, and actually we saw that it is trendy. We saw already several games in top charts, but we decided not to hurry up. We decided to make it better than not very good made products at that time. And we launched it, and if I'm not mistaken, it is the only product on the Squid series which scaled more than 50 million downloads, and still it feels very good. It is because of combination. Yeah, we caught this trend. Some trends cannot be catched by you. You know, it depends on how you're attentive to the market. But we were attentive that time. We were lucky to make really good game. We implemented everything we know about game design, about how we treat all these games with a lot of mechanics, and it is appeared to be a good thing. But as a big publisher, as every guy's here, you have to be very flexible. You have to look both trends, you have to adapt them, you have to rethink them, because Huggy Wuggy, it is a good trend, but Huggy Wuggy itself, it is not gameplayable trend. Huggy Wuggy, it is about images, you know, it is about well-known image, which can be good from marketability side, from ASO side. Squid Game was lucky. We were all lucky. I mean, all the industry were lucky to have such trend which has gameplay potential. You know, all these games in the Squid series, it is well-known games from our childhood, you know, and a lot of games from our childhood, a lot of just games played in real life, you know. It can be adapted to games. Of course, I mean, I don't mean when the guys shooting each other. I mean, I mean another stuff. But I think you got what I mean. That's the situation from our perspective. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, man. So following with you, Nir, here. So I want to add some few tips here. So when I first saw the coloring match game, I was super shocked that it came from Supersonic. That I was feeling like Supersonic is totally ignoring social trends. They're only focusing on in-game metrics, etc., etc. So did this game change your approach, or did this game change your average looking to the social trends?
Yeah, so I think first of all, Color Match is an amazing game by Garou Games, which are one of the best studios working with Supersonic. Obviously, also the developers of Bridge Race we discussed previously. But in general, I don't think that Supersonic have like an approach to focus only on specific subgenre in the hyper casual market. I think that we've published all kinds of subgenres and concepts already. And basically, I think that we're working with a lot of amazing developers, and their expertise is what necessary for being able to publish a lot of different genres, successful games about color match. So I think it's not that it kind of changed the approach of Supersonic, but it demonstrates how strong social media trends are, and the connection for hyper casual games as games that based on viral concepts that everyone would like to play and to see. And I think this is a key point for hyper casual games. And color match, I think it's an amazing example for taking very trendy video or concept for social media, gamifying it almost to the exact gameplay, and enjoying the amazing viral videos and UA abilities of the game. I think that what makes color match so successful is also the in-game metrics and the LTV of the game, which are amazing, which obviously Gower Games did an amazing job. But just want to highlight that it's required, although it looks like a very simple game, which is a very simple gameplay, what's happening behind the scenes with dozens of A/B tests and features and things we're adding every day is the reason why we still see color match and other games topping the charts and making amazing profits. So in general, I think that there is a lot of ways to take to get inspired from social media trends. If it's like color match, to take the exact gameplay. If it's taking trendy videos and using it as a theme on other templates, subgenres, games, I think it's an engine for understanding trends that can highly scale. And there is no only one way to get inspired and gamify social media trends, but many. Yeah.
Great, man. Thanks. So following with you, Surojit. So as the social trend killer here, what is the approach of CrazyLabs to find the best social games, actually, if you can name it like this? And also, is there any change of the approach of the CrazyLabs to social trends?
I think, I agree with a lot of what Nir said just now, which is that there's firstly a lot of different ways to address trends, a lot of different ways to perceive them, a lot of different places to find them. We look at social trends or social media trends, but there's also trends like general trends in the world that are happening, that you'll spot in the news, that you'll spot on Netflix, or on the streaming platforms, or on the music platforms, in general mass media. So I think where you look for trends, tends to be different for different studios. And I think if you're going, you can take up a much more broader perspective than just seeing specific trends on TikTok. Whereas you can look at TikTok, or you can look at Instagram Watch, etc., and find great ways to lower your CPI. If you can find a video that's got 1 million views or 1 million likes, that's something that can be used to actually significantly lower your CPI. But in terms of where the market is going today, and some of the things we talked about, and the fact that it's becoming now about making a more wholesome game, I think it's important to start looking at the broader trends as well that are happening worldwide. And the more places you look, the more you start to see them. And as far as CrazyLabs goes, I wouldn't say we're doing anything specific. I think it just so happens that the studios we work with, the very talented studios that we work with, tend to go after a certain type of game, and tend to be good at a certain type of game. Hence why we've got so many games in the simulation category out there today. And it's more a result of the studios that we work with and the work they're doing. And as we progress and as we evolve, we're starting to go into newer and newer categories. And you can see that with some of our new games in the top charts as well. So yeah, it's an ever changing process. I wouldn't say there's one way. There's a whole lot of different ways, as evidenced by all the other guys sitting here as well. So yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks for your answer. So, lastly, for JB. So, what's the TapNation's approach here? I see that you have both games as social trends, gamified, or also out from the other sides. So, what's your approach here? And also, is there any other source that you can give as a tip here from the ideation perspective?
Yeah, so as we're talking about trends, I'd like to differentiate because to me, there's two types of trends. There's internal hyper-casual trends, and there's external overall subject trends. To me, in hyper-casual, when you notice a game that goes into top charts or that is popping up, at least into releases, that introduces a new mechanic, to me, this is a potential trendsetter game, because it means that it's something that a mechanic you've not seen before. And if it's going to top charts, there's a definite interest in it. And that means that this is where you come in your ideation process and see how you can include this gameplay into all other successful past recipes. So you look at huge games that have worked really, really well in the past, and you see how you can include this new mechanic that you've seen pop up. If you're the one creating the new mechanic, all the better. My main advice would be to not rely on only one success with this new mechanic you've introduced, because usually the first entry is not always the best entry. So you always need to see how you can improve this trend. So that's for me how you would manage, how you would seek trends into the hyper casual market, is if you see a new mechanic. If you see a new mechanic and it's popular, even if only one game making it to the top charts with this mechanic, it means that there's trend potential there and that you can onboard it. As for external trends, to me, it's all about where the interest is. One of the main focus of the hyper casual market, but more broadly of the advertisement market, is where interest is. And so you need to see, as Surojit was saying with the YouTube videos, if you see things with a lot of views, you know that's where interest is gathered. I think in the hyper casual market, DIY games is a very nice example of how to exploit trends. You check out what seems satisfying, what appeals to the user, what gathers interest. That's what we've been doing with our most recent hit, Figurine Art. Do-it-yourself games are, for me, the greatest example of how to exploit trends external to the hyper casual markets. You check out TikTok videos, you look at what is trending, the top hashtags, you check them all out, you see what can be gamified. It's not about just taking a trend and putting it into a game, not seeing if it's coherent enough, or if there's any reason to do so, but it's seeing the trend and seeing what appeals to people in this trend, and how can I gamify it? How can I make it fun to do and not just to watch? Because often trends are only fun to watch, but if you can make it fun to do, then this is how you successfully ideate on trends.
Yeah, I totally get it. That I know that lots of studios has games like they find the key metric as a CPI, that it's a really fun to watch game with a great creative and it had a good CPI, but they never had to able to increase the in-game metrics, so they had to kill the game. There are lots of examples like this. That's what you mean. I get it. Mm-hmm. So we don't have much time, so I want to keep with the questions. So I will be picking a few of them unless we have time. So there's a long question here, but as far as I understand, the person want to ask something like, what is the future dangers for the hyper casual genre? I mean, he want to ask like, if there are a few new publishers, like huge publishers like Steam, Epic, EA, or even Take-Two, like with the merge of the Zynga, maybe, if they influence the market a lot and if they change the flow of the market a lot, is it be a danger for the future of the market? And also, is there any other dangers that you see as the future of the market? Who want to answer?
Let me answer, please. They do influence, yeah. They can influence, but they can influence their audience, gamers, PC gamers, console gamers. Once again, hyper casual, it is about mobile users. they have no any influence until they are in this market. Because yeah, they have, come on, please force any Dota player to start playing hyper casual 3 times per day. Never. So no threat in this field. I think I think no need to spend time there even.
I can get one more answer here. Is there? Okay. No one want to answer it. Okay. So a quick question, actually. Where can we as developers find the best current games and their metrics as public source or as a public platform? Do you find any good ways to find these metrics?
I mean, so regarding the games themselves, maybe not their metrics. Of course, keeping a vigilant eye on new releases on the stores, on the Android stores, because that's the main testing environment, I'd say, for first prototypes for publishers, is also a must. But I think people are already doing this. But well, if they're not, they should for sure. And also managing to secure accounts on good insight markets like App Annie and stuff like that, to be able to look into depth into these games that you notice, into top releases and new releases, is something that is very important. Also, something that is good to check out is really, as I was saying, for the top 200 games, top 300 games, in new releases, how fast they're growing. If you see a lot of installs in a short term, obviously this means there's a great CPI, and you can check out the game. And the more you become experienced with the market, the more you can try a game and gather how the game metrics are, because you can see what the key indicators for how to keep you interested. As Sergey was saying, for the progression, if you see that the studio had done a great job implementing new sub mechanics, new types of renewability of your interest, of course. So for sure, looking at all those sensor assets that allow you to look at games new entries is something that is, in my opinion, the best way to accomplish this.
Is there anyone want to add some stuff too? Or okay, I'm keeping.
Maybe just
okay, Nir.
Yeah, sure. So I totally agree with JB. Just wanted to add, I think it's very important as a publishers to make sure that your developers and your partners are aware of the current trends and strong games, and obviously it's not enough. Like we in Supersonic, I guess that most of the publishers doing it, but we're sharing on a weekly basis a very deep analysis of the market, of new prototypes, new interesting prototypes we're seeing. Also, on the other hand, we're sharing like bad prototypes and things that not working and bad combinations. And I think that the goal for both sides is to make sure that every prototype that someone is working on will have the highest potential to be successful. And for that, it's very, very important for us as a publishers that we have a very good overview over the industry with external tools, and also we're seeing a lot of tested prototypes and soft launches and games that are currently launched. So this is a great way and a must way actually to share with developers, so they won't shoot in the dark, as I said before.
Great. So I think that's one of the questions that I'm pretty sure every curious studio asks to their publishers about this topic. So why do hyper-casual games tests only done in Facebook or TikTok, and at the end of the soft launch or at the end of the launch phase, they mostly monetize through ad networks, or they mostly scale through ad networks? It's not totally right, I know, but it's mostly about the testing phase.
The fastest way, it is the fastest way to receive metrics, and it will be relevant in comparison with ads networks. You will scale your game, but the only reason actually it is the pace, the speed. You can start immediately on TikTok or Facebook and you will get relevant, or at least almost relevant result. And what about huge ads networks? It have to, it have to study, it have to optimize, and so on, and you'll get relevant result at least 1 week. So that's it.
I also want to add.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Nir.
Okay, Nir, go please.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I agree with Sergey. I think that Facebook is very simple to integrate and to test, and is probably the fastest way. I think that as we discussed before, like the idea of the initial testing and in the prototyping phase is creating the valuation, is evaluating both the marketability and the in-game metrics. I think that's something we understood in the past year and a half, is that Facebook it isn't telling the full story of the game, and it's probably it makes a lot of sense because Facebook has specific users, TikTok has different users, Iron Source Network has other users, Unity, etc., etc. So I think it's very important to test all of them. Now it's difficult to test obviously all of the networks, and we don't really need to test all of them. But I think that taking each network and the group of users, if it's social media, so Facebook, TikTok, would do the job if it's on SDK networks. So obviously there wasn't a good way to test prototypes on SDK networks because of the learning phase and the algorithm of the networks, which needed a lot of budgets to understand the potential of the games. Recently, Iron Source released a new feature, which is testing prototypes on the SDK network of Iron Source, which is a game changer. Basically, we're testing most of our games on Iron Source network. It gives us a wider picture and better evaluation of the game. Obviously, there is game that if they're very good and marketable on Facebook and TikTok, probably they will be also very good on Iron Source network. But if we discuss on the edge cases and the cases we don't want to miss a good concept because they have a mediocre CPI. So in that case, testing on Iron Source network or any other SDK network would do an amazing job to not miss a good concept, because in the end of the day, SDK networks, as you said, it's the biggest UA channels for hyper casual games, and therefore it's super valuable to see the metrics of your game in early phase as you can. Yeah, I think it's super important.
So
I'd like to add one thing on the subject, is just that I think that it's not all about Facebook and TikTok. Of course, it is mainly in the testing environment, but to me, Facebook and TikTok, and they're way different also, because for trend-related subjects, for instance, for TikTok, TikTok will yield crazy results that will not translate into other networks. So you need to keep in mind that every network has their drawback and their advantages. But to me, Facebook and TikTok, first of all, are not working on the bidding system, so it's easier to verify a game's potential straight away. You get the metric that it is. You're not the one setting the bar. And also, as well, I see that Facebook and TikTok do not give you a guarantee of a success of the game on other networks. They give you a potential of what you can do with the game. And with this potential, you then go to networks and verify this potential. We've seen games that have yielded medium results at first testing period during Facebook and TikTok that you get out in the networks and it yields wow, mind-blowing results. We know that this was early on the case for Giant Rush, for instance, at TapNation. But you also have games that feel like they're amazing, especially on TikTok. Often it happens. You see CPIs that were at like 9 cents and stuff like that, and you go on to the networks and you see that this does not translate itself in reality at all. So to me, as a testing environment, Facebook remains what is best today. This is not why we should stop considering other means. I know that some people have started testing on Mintergoal as well. And so, of course, as the hyper-casual market is always competitive, finding new ways to innovate, not only on the product side, but also how you're working on the games behind the scenes, is a must. But as I see from my experience, at least for now, as a testing environment, Facebook is the most relevant in terms of probability of seeing what you see on Facebook translate itself on other networks.
Great. So we are actually off time. I'm pretty sure we could keep discussing until we are out of energy, but we have to finish here. So I want to thank you all for joining here with me and discussing about great questions here. So thanks everyone for joining and listening to us, and bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, guys.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.